Hey, sup? I'm back because I got more stuff in my mind from the live stream that I made yesterday. So, yay! And then I was like, oh yeah, that one show about depression. And I was like, oh yeah, that was filmed at my school. How could I not know? Also, don't be expecting 13 Reasons Why season 3 to be coming out anytime soon. They're still filming at our school. It's really annoying. Like, actually, oh my god. I mean, other than the fact that we, have their posters and stuff, it's really annoying because they keep messing up the gym, and then there are flies in it. Thanks, 13 Reasons Why crew. Anyways, so more about depression. So, I was mainly just thinking about the 13 Reasons Why opinion thing, but I'm gonna start talking about how the story made me feel, being someone with depression myself, and how inaccurate or accurate you could say it was for me, and if it affected me in any way. And I'm just gonna say right now, yes, it did affect me, and I don't really know how, because it's I'm not super constantly affected by it, but it has affected me. And I know there's a lot of things that they've done wrong with filming, which are actually really unsafe for people with depression. And I'm going to go ahead and back that up, because I really do think that some of the things that they put in that show, they really shouldn't have, because it does glorify suicide. So I'm going to get started. So basically throughout the show, Hannah Baker does blame a lot of things on other characters, and a lot of people like to say, well, oh, you can't just blame people for the decision you made. And yeah, that's what people from the outside say. And I'm just saying this from my own thought process and how I felt having depression and how I think others might feel. I know not everybody is going to feel the same way, but in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of the things that contribute to my depression and stuff is feeling like nobody cares. And there are acts of kindness that will just make you feel a little more cared about, but at the end of the day, it's still not going to help a lot, because you're still not going to be able to feel cared for. But it still is important to show people that you do care, because it can help make a difference. I mean, for me, even when people are kind to me, I still kind of just brush it off, and I'm like, they don't really care. They're just saying that right now because I'm being helpful, for once. So, it just kind of doesn't really do anything for me. But it's not to say that it isn't helpful, so people shouldn't do nice things, because yes, they should do and say nice things and try and be considerate of what other people might be going through, and they shouldn't just put off all these things. I remember people were criticizing 13 Reasons Why about this one thing where Hannah Baker said oh, Zane, I think his name, or wait, no, Zach threw this note on the ground where I told him my feelings and stuff, and it really hurt me. And he was taking this little bunny rabbit picture for me every day. And I just want to say I can't say I do, or I have been diagnosed with depression, but I just want to say in a way that really hit me. A lot of people criticized it, but it really did hit me as someone who has felt depressed and thinks that they are depressed. I'm not saying that I am, because I've never been diagnosed with it. Yeah, I already went through this in my other stream. But I've had a lot of symptoms of depression And I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that I do have depression. And I have had issues. So, like, I just want to put this out there. Like, that moment, like, you know, it felt, like, relatable in a way. And I mean, it's not like, oh, like, poor Hannah Baker, she's losing her bunny rabbits that are, like, so important. It's like, no. Like, the reason she was so upset was because it was something that meant a lot to her. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're gonna cut someone off from something that means a lot to them, like, just because you don't know it doesn't mean you should just do something that could be potentially cutting off someone's source of something that's just been keeping them going and making them feel a little better, like someone actually does care. And I mean, sure, 13 Reasons Why shouldn't be taken too seriously, obviously, because it is like a Riverdale kind of show with like drama that makes no sense. And like, I remember watching it for the first time when I was in 8th grade, and I was actually scared that people at that school were going to be like that, because that the show was filmed at my school, so I was really scared that people at the school were going to be like that. But I found out that really there isn't that kind of negativity. And I mean, I didn't really know what to expect because of my whole being homeschooled fiasco with my mom and everything. But, you know, it really just scared me. And yeah. But, you know, honestly, people do tend to depend on like this small thing that just makes them feel like, hey, everything's gonna be all right. Like, someone's being nice to me and they're giving me like this thing that's really nice, and it just reminds me that even in the darkest of time there's still a little bit of light. And, you know, to me that was like just that little piece of light that Hannah Baker had. And yeah, I mean, I'm not just trying to say like, oh, this really means something really important and you people shouldn't be criticizing it, because yeah, I get where the criticism comes from. I get that it still doesn't make a lot of sense, and that, yeah, people don't contribute a lot to depression and it's usually just the person and themselves. But it is other people as well. It's not just you. It's the feeling that nobody else cares about you. It's the feeling that you're never going to get out of this because, like, you have your own problems and there's a lot of other stuff you have to deal with, and people aren't making it any easier. And that's the part that I think a lot of people might not understand, is that you feel like people just don't care and wouldn't understand if you tried to explain to them, and that people are just going to be jerks, and even if you told them, they're still going to act the same way, so you don't really want to tell them about these things. And like, part of the show is Hannah Baker talking about all these things that made her want to end her life, like someone getting hit by a car because she didn't report like this stop sign incident, or like her poem getting published without her permission and stuff like that. And, you know, even though nobody knew it was her with the poem and everything, you'd still feel kind of like those rude comments were directed towards you, because they were directed towards the person who wrote the poem. And like, I'm like, it's not even about the fact that it isn't stupid. It's more of the fact that people try to over criticize it and maybe not try to think about the whole situation and how you might feel in the situation before criticizing it, about like the flaws in it. Because yes, there are obviously flaws. I mean, nothing is perfect in this world, but you still have to take it from like this value and try and understand it more within your own mind and try and like apply it to things in your life, or just like try and understand that there are people that can feel like that. And I mean, Hannah Baker isn't a perfect representation, obviously, because like she gets to have this story and she comes back in the second season and it makes no sense because it shows you like, oh, you can use this as a plan to get back at people that like gave you a hard time. And like I've gone through some stages with this show, and it's not like I'm attached to the show. I don't even really like the show that much. Like, it's just that there are some emotional things in it that, you know, just like really hit me in like this weird way. And like, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. It's like some of it's relatable, like feeling like nobody cares because of all these actions of people. And it just makes you feel like, since nobody really cares anyways, why should I be around? It's like, I mean, I've had issues with wanting to commit suicide at points where I just felt like nobody cared because of like reasons, like, you know, oh, like that one time that person did that one thing that made me feel really bad, and they knew they shouldn't have, but they did it anyways because they wanted to get something out of it. And just all those things build up, and you realize like sometimes your mind just goes to like the conclusion, well, maybe the reason this is happening to me is because I'm not really needed in this world. And maybe I should just tell these people, hey, what you did is wrong. And like the way you need to show them that is through death. And like that's a thought process I think that came up with 13 Reasons Why, that made suicide as some type of weapon. And like, yeah, I can see that, but it could also be out of frustration, because what I got out of it wasn't that Hannah Baker was like trying to use suicide as a weapon. She was more of trying to use it as this lesson to the people who had done these things that made a person feel so bad. And some of the things were less than others. But when you're in that bad state of mind, everything just feels horrible. I mean, today, I was at school. I'm just going to use this as an example because it happened today. So I was in my alternative fitness class and we were on spin bikes, and I got stuck on this spin bike in like a really weird way. And so the teacher was like, whoa, you just need to like chill out and like calm down with what you're doing and like turn the resistance down in that bike. And so I ended up having a breakdown after that resistance class because I felt horrible about it. And it felt like every horrible thing in my life just came up in that moment. And that's the thing that I think people just don't realize, is that it's not just one of these things at a time. It's just all of it building up, just making the whole situation feel worse because, oh, this bad thing happened to me, and oh, another thing bad is happening to me. And I guess these people must just hate me because all these things keep happening. And I know they don't understand, but it still just feels horrible that all these things are happening and all at the same time. So maybe it's just the universe's way of telling me, hey, it's time for you to go. You don't need to be here. They don't want you here. And you know, it really makes you feel like an outsider. And I mean, that's really what I have to say the show gets right. It's just like those feelings. And even if, like, even me saying like they get it right, it's not like they get it 100% because it still doesn't feel 100% right. But I remember during the show when I was just binge watching it because everybody was watching it at the time, I was like crying during some of the moments because I could really relate to Hannah Baker, and I could like relate to some of like those horrible situations and how bad it just felt, and the negativity just sucked me in. And that's why I don't think it's a good show, because you're just so wrapped up in the negativity of it. It's like, I don't think that's just me, and that's probably why they put the warning, like, for people with depression, because it can do that. It just takes that negativity and adds to it. And obviously that's not a good influence to be around. And I was like really just wrapped up in the show because of all the emotionalness that it had me sucked into. It's like, and not all of it is accurate. Obviously, I keep saying that over and over again. And not all of it is a good choice to have in the show, like Hannah Baker's suicide. Like, I mean, that really should not have been executed the way they did it, because they glorified it way too much and made it seem so easy to just, like do these things and have it turn out, well, in the end you get to watch this like revenge plot out, so like you can like see what happens after you die and see how much you did mean, or like see what happens afterwards, just to see what happens. Like, doesn't mean people will care, but you're just hoping that maybe people will care after you're dead, so you'll finally get to see those people caring. And I think that's a real problem with the show, because it's making you think that you can just get that attention and get that love, and you'll still be able to see it after you're gone. And the thing is, you won't. And I mean, maybe sometimes, like, people are like, well, I still just want to die anyways because, like, I don't like feeling this hecticness. And I mean, that's something that I feel. Like, that's something that I felt. And it's like, what, there are times where I've just wanted to die because, like, my household is just crazy as hell. And trying to live in it is just so difficult. And with everything that happened, like my dad being gone and my mom not being very supportive, it's like, it just really makes you feel like there's nothing that you really care about. And I mean, I think that's something that the show really fails to mention, is that, like, Hannah Baker just doesn't care about anything. Like, it's not really shown. And they kind of make people seem in the wrong because of, like, certain things, like Clay leaving after Hannah told him to go and stuff like that. It's like, maybe he shouldn't have left, but Hannah was so persistent on wanting him to leave, even though she didn't want him to leave, that, like, what else could he do? And, like, I mean, she said he didn't deserve to be on a tape, but he was on a tape because that moment was just so emotional for her. And I think people just perceive that as her putting him on the tape because he didn't do what she wanted him to do. But in reality, I think it's just about how she felt because of it, and not really based on his actions being bad or anything. And that's the thing, because, like, I'm just trying to use examples from my own life so, like, you can kind of get an understanding of where I'm coming from, and, like, see how it is relatable to someone who has, like, dealt with situations, and how, like, they've been able to relate to the stories, but also see the flaws in it as well. Um, like, an example is, like, sometimes I'll get really upset and just, like, not want to talk to someone. Like, I'll just say my boyfriend, yeah. Like, because we'll get into a fight and then I just won't want to talk to him, but I'll still want him near me. And, like, emotions are confusing and crazy, so it's like, I'd want him to stay in the room with me, but I wouldn't want him to talk to me or be in the room, because, like, some part of my mind is telling me, no, like, I don't want to be around him right now, it's horrible. But then another part of me is saying, but I need him because he comforts me. And, like, it's just hard and complicated. I mean, 13 Reasons Why was trying to portray some of that hard and complicated stuff, but they used really bad ways of trying to show that through these basic clicks at schools that don't happen at all. Like, what jocks? No, seriously. But, like, it's just more complex than the show tries to make it seem. And I mean, yeah, their whole thing is to start a conversation, and here's a conversation. Wow. Wouldn't you have guessed? Fun. But, like, I think the show does do a decent job at starting a conversation for people to talk about. But I don't think it's starting the right conversation. And that's, like, a worry that I have, is maybe it's not starting the right conversation for people to be having. And does that mean people are going to have all these misconceptions about depression and just think that, oh, depression is only caused by these people, so they need to be really worried about how they treat other people? And, like, that's not the problem. The problem is people being outwardly mean to others with, like, no true reason, or just not being considerate and thinking that other people might be going through difficult phases in their lives, and that they shouldn't be, like, rude to someone for whatever reason, or be doing those things, because you don't know what's going on in someone else's personal life, and that could ruin their day and destroy, like, whatever sanity they had on that day. It could just completely ruin their day to an extent where that day is completely ruined for them just because of one small comment. And that can be a problem. But at the same time, you shouldn't be fake nice to people, because, like, the problem I see with that is that, like, you're just gonna know it's fake and that they're only doing it to please you. And if they're only doing it to please you, then you're gonna feel unhappy because it's not genuine. And I feel like maybe the show just doesn't, like, portray this enough, doesn't go into it enough, doesn't want to talk about it enough. But, like, the show doesn't even, like, center around Hannah Baker anymore. And, like, the show should have really centered around, like, all the problems that Hannah Baker had in the first season, instead of going into this random stuff in the second season, because now it makes no sense and there are a lot of inconsistencies with it. And, it sucks, because there are so many things that they could have used that could have given the story so much more complexity and meaning, that could have made it better to understanding the issues with depression, which it doesn't touch on as much as it should have, because it was really just blaming these people. It's really just blaming these people for these things and why Hannah Baker committed suicide. But she clearly had other things wrong with her that weren't even addressed. And, like, some of it was addressed in the second season, but there was no, like, psychological stuff, like, really addressed at all. It was just the people. And it's not just the people. The people is, like, a part of it, but it's not all of it. And they're portraying it as if all of it, or most of it, has to do with people, and that a small portion has to do with mental health itself, and that everyone else is just degrading that mental health. But in reality, it can be from, like, family situations, like, not just the people, but how the person in that family feels, like, and feels in that, like, area. Like, if they feel welcome in their own home, or if they feel cared about by the people who are supposed to be closest to them, if they feel like they're hated, or if they feel safe, and like if they were raised in a way that told them to like not value themselves. Those are all things that, yeah, sure, they relate to people, but it also relates to like mentality. And I feel like I went into some things that are more related to people than mentality. But there are things like genetics that do involve like more likelihood to have depression than others. And I know they brought that up in the second season, but really it didn't really make much of a difference because their statement about Hannah Baker had already been made in the first season. Like, wow, just throw that in like in the second season. It makes sense. And like they could have used the second season as this opportunity to like really shine light on everything that happened with Hannah Baker. Like everything wrong in her mind. But instead, it was just this court battle with these events in Hannah Baker's life that had happened that weren't mentioned in the tapes. And yeah, that could be included, but a lot of stuff to go into her, like a lot of things going into her mental health and history and like her childhood could have also been good things to add into the show, like knowing her childhood and how she mentally developed. Like that could have also brought more insight into the depression and why she would see everyone else as being the problem. But like they didn't choose to do that, which I think is a problem in its own, is that they didn't elaborate on it as much as they should have. And they haven't given out proper and accurate information for a good conversation to be started that's constructive. Yeah, they start a conversation, but not a conversation based on facts and like how things work, or just, you know, how this happens in general. It's really just, oh, she felt bad and started feeling super horrible and everything because of all these horrible things that have happened in her life in this short period of time. So she decided to end her life because of it. And it's like, there's usually more to it than that. And, you know, I feel like I'm just saying the same things over and over again. So I'm gonna like move on to the part of her actually killing herself, which honestly, I really know, like, I know that one of the things they should not have done was show how graphic it was and show how she did it. They could have just, like, showed a scene of her walking into the bathroom and never coming out, and then have her mom find her. They could have done that instead of adding in the graphic details, because it's not helping and it can give people ideas on how to kill themselves. And I'm just gonna come out and say it, like like I used that as an idea. Like I really did, because I didn't know what else I could do. So, you know, cutting myself. Woo. Yay. No, not yay. Don't do that. But really, it just gives you an option. And then, like, sure, it might seem horrible at the time, but then later you're going to start contemplating on it and be like, but it could be easier than it looks in the film. And it might just be the easiest way out. And it's the only way I know how. And those things like that, I really think shouldn't be in a show. I know they were trying to go through for reality, but they really didn't do that when they were putting all these cliche groups into their film. And they should have not added this moment of suicide into it just to be realistic if they weren't going to add other realistic things. And they shouldn't have done it anyways because it can be more harmful, and it has been more harmful. And I know a little bit after the first season of 13 Reasons Why came out, a girl in my middle school committed suicide. And I have no idea if she had watched 13 Reasons Why or not. And yeah, but that in itself is a problem. Even if she hadn't watched 13 Reasons Why and didn't get an idea from 13 Reasons Why. I don't know how she committed suicide. I just know that she did, and she seemed perfectly fine, but she had issues of her own that people didn't know until, like, she had her service. But, still, it's just a problem in general. Because if people can just see that and find a way to do what they've been wanting to do, they'll have an easier time trying to execute it. And that's one of the main problems I have with 13 Reasons Why. Other than this emotional roller coaster that it takes you through, especially if you've been dealing with problems that you can somewhat relate to on some level, because everything in the show is portrayed as pretty dramatic. And I think people forget to realize that those things actually do feel just as dramatic in the show. Like, I caught myself multiple times. Yeah, I was crying, but I was crying because it felt so real. Because things in high school can feel that real because you're still a teenager and you're still just trying to develop and discover who you are, while being told that you need to be able to go to college and you need to do all these things in high school to get your way to college, or else you're going to be a nobody. And then being told all these other different opinions, being told how you're still developing and how certain things are less healthy for you, and just being told what you should do with your life constantly while you're still just trying to figure out who you are, and then being told how, figure out who you are, it just gets so dramatic. And people might look back and think, oh, it wasn't that bad, but in the moment, it is that bad. And, I know a lot of people might think, oh, well, no, it really isn't. But it feels like it is. And that's the problem, is that it feels that way. So people are going to act the way they feel in that moment and not act like the way they might if they were 20 years in the future and dealing with the same situation. Because, in those moments, you're not fully prepared for a situation, which just makes it more dramatic because you don't know what to do. Yeah, you can look back on things from when you were younger and say, oh, I was really stupid. I could have, done something else, and, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But yeah, that's because you would have known what to do now, but not then. Because then you were different. And every moment you're changing. And, you're learning new things every minute, which also just makes your mind, feel, different, and feel like you were so different, years ago than you are now because you know so much more. And yeah, it's I think I was really cringy when I was 10 and making Pokemon plush videos for this channel. I was oh my god, that was so cringy, I was so stupid, why did I make those videos? But back then, it felt great making those videos because I felt like I was doing something that I enjoyed doing at the time. And in the time, yeah, I did feel great doing it, but now I feel really stupid for doing it. And it's like that. It's I'm just trying to grasp my mind around these words. It's late at night and I really need to get to bed. But I just really wanted to talk about this, like, as a follow-up, because I kind of just, like, got off topic and started, like, doing my homework and being weird. But, you know, it really does affect you. Like, whether you like it or not, things just look different at different times in your life. Like, I can think I was a cringy 10-year-old now, but back then, I thought I was, like, super cool and epic and overweight. I still think I was overweight, even now. But now, I'm like, okay, yeah, I was overweight. I was 10, still growing. But, like, then, I felt like, oh my god, I'm overweight, I'm never gonna get better. And, like, now I'm like, I'm a potato. Curry potato, but, you know, still. It's like, things change. And this is a part of 13 Reasons Why that I really feel like they did capture as how dramatic it feels when you're in these situations firsthand. And even though it's like some basic high school drama, they still kind of get the feeling and that moment for some people. I mean, not everyone feels the same way, but this is just coming from me. I'm a very sensitive being, but really, it can feel that way for some people. And capturing that, I think, is a good thing that the show did. But also, capturing it too much is what I think kind of is bad for the show. Because they didn't really touch on how to help. They kind of just touched on, this is how it is, and not what we can do. Or like, and not what, or not like, why. Because it's called 13 Reasons Why. But it's more of 13 Reasons What. Seriously. Like, it's not telling you why. It's giving you the what is happening. Like, not the why it happened, but what is happening. And yeah, that might sound weird, but when you really just stop and think about it, like, yeah, we're talking about a girl who killed herself, and we're talking about why. But we're talking about what she felt. And it's not so much about why she did it anymore. It's more about what happened to her. Like, so you can, like, take that whatever way you want. I'm just being stupid. But I gotta go to bed, and I'm tired. So, peace out, my people who kind of maybe watch me a little bit. And Poppy, I swear to God, if you found my YouTube channel, I am going to stab you on Thursday. So, good night. Goodbye.